Hello again, welcome back to the channel. Today, sorry about that stutter right there at the beginning. Today I wanted to talk about Dragonwing. It's volume 1 of the Deathgate cycle by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. I've talked about other books that they've done on this podcast before. This is another series that they co-authored. They've done, this is, as I said, this is the Deathgate cycle, but they've also done the Rose of the Prophet trilogy, the Deathgate cycle. I want to say there's another one that they are fairly well known for. I'm trying to pull it up and see if I can find it really quick. Dragonlance obviously is the big one. But let's see if I can find it. Dark Sword, the Dark Sword one. That's the other one that I was thinking of. But they have several that they've done together. Anyway, so we have the Dragon Gate, or the Deathgate cycle, and Dragonwing is the first book in the series. We get a lot of information in this because in antiquity, there were two races that were vying for control. They were the Patron, sorry if I don't pronounce it the way that you've got in your head, and the Sartan. And they were the most magically powerful of any of the races. You have the humans, elves, and dwarves, because this is a fantasy setting. So you still have those races, but you also had these other two. You can think of them as like the... if you're looking at some of like sci-fi and things, you've got like the Forerunners, that group of beings who at the beginning of time were the most powerful, the most developed, and then suddenly they disappeared. So you have these two races, the Sartan and the Patron, and they were vying for control, and the Sartan came out ahead. And they split the world into different realms. So we start in the realm of air, or the world of air. And this is, as you would expect, you have floating islands, and people get about by flight. The humans have dominated dragons. And I want to say dominated, I don't want to say domesticated, because the dragons, it takes magic and an effort of will to hold the dragon in your thrall. And then the elves, they have created flying boats. They call them dragon boats. And they use those to move around. Humans on flying dragons, elves on dragon boats. The dwarves live on the lowest tier of the realm. They have the low, mid, and then the high realm. And the dwarves have been subject to basically racism again by both the humans and the elves. And they are relegated to the low realm, where they have this machine that makes water. Because this being the realm of air, there's very little water to go around. So it's a constant source of friction between the elves, the dwarves, and the humans. They're constantly warring over this. Mostly the elves and the humans, the dwarves are, well, as I said, they're relegated to that lower realm, maintaining this engine that they have no idea what it does. They just know that they have to work on it. In this scene, this is where we start meeting new people, right? So we have Hugh the Hand. He's an assassin, and he's on trial, or not on trial. He's about to be executed when he is saved by a wizard who serves one of the human kings. And he is given the assignment to kill the king's child. And he thinks that the queen is not in on this, but apparently both the king and the queen think this child is really creepy and there's a problem with the child, and so they hire an assassin to take the kid out. when Hugh, it's really weird the way that it goes, because it's not like he just sneaks into the palace and kills the kid and then leaves. He takes the kid with him. There's some things that, in my mind, it's a contrivance, and it could have been done better, but it's a contrivance. And we also meet Alfred. Alfred serves Prince Bane, and then we meet a patron. He, when the Sartan conquered or overcame the patrons and sundered the world, then split it into the different realms, what they did was they exiled the patrons to a dimension that they created called the Labyrinth. And the patrons have been, for the past untold number of years, they've been locked inside this labyrinth, battling monsters and different traps and things that were in the labyrinth. And so they have become very much hardened to life, to conflict, to combat, because they've had to live in that kind of situation. So we meet Haplo. Haplo is the first patron who's visited any of the sundered realms since the patrons were locked in this labyrinth. And we find out later that we have a Sartan in our midst, and it's Alfred. Alfred is the last Sartan on the world of the realm of air. Now, as I said, there's a lot to unpack here. This is a pretty good series. I enjoyed it. As I said, there are some things that, sorry about that. I keep forgetting to silence my phone when I'm doing these recordings. Personally, it's very contrived to, in my mind, have the king and queen want to kill their child, and hiring an assassin to do it, but then having the assassin just take the child and go somewhere else. It seems very much that, in my mind, that you would arrange the situation such that the assassin would be where the child is, or the target, to take care of it at that point. Whereas it seems unnecessarily complicated to take the child from the king and queen off somewhere, which is fine, but as I said, contrived. Now, they do end up flying around the realms. They interact with the various species, because we have Haplo ending up at the dwarven settlement, and then the others ending up there as well. And you find out that there's more to what's going on as well, because, as I said, there's a high, mid, and lower realm, and the dwarves have been relegated to this lower realm. The elves and humans have been fighting over the mid realm, and there's actually a group of humans up at the high realm. Now, they are humans that have more mastery of magic than anybody else. They're still not as powerful as the mythical races that caused the sundering to begin with, but they're still very powerful. They're called the Mysteriarchs. And there's a lot of what do you call that? Basically, there's a fantasification, if I can say, of some of these things. So the Mysteriarchs, it's very much a fantasy word there, a fantasy concept. Even the machine is not, called the hydration device or something like that. The dwarves call it the Kixie Winsy. Everybody does. And so there's some of these things that in my mind, they detract a little bit. And as I said, there's some maybe overcomplication of a few things. I did enjoy the series. I didn't enjoy it as much as their first Dragonlance series. I very much preferred that one to the Deathgate cycle. I can't say that the subsequent Dragonlance series that were done by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman were as good as the first Dragonlance series. But I did enjoy this series, the Deathgate cycle. I enjoyed it much more than the Dark Sword series. I really didn't like the Dark Sword series at all. Anyway, that's it for the Dragon Gate, or the Dragon Wing, the first book in the Deathgate cycle. If you've read it and you have a different take on the book, please let me know. If you haven't read it, I hope I gave you enough to kind of read enough to inform yourself as to whether or not you wanted to read this series. Again, let me know. Like, share, subscribe, all that other stuff. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until next time, enjoy what you're reading.